hours after the peace deal to end the war with Israel, Hamas moves toward a civil war in Gaza. Can anything stop the violence of this terror group? The Post's Caitlin Dornbos joins me to explain it all. Plus, an Arkansas man accused of murdering his daughter's rapist is running for sheriff. Will he be able to balance his campaign and his murder trial? And oh, Canada, former Prime Minister and, depending on your type, possible global heartthrob Justin Trudeau gets cozy with a music superstar south of the border. Those stories and more today, Tuesday, October 14th. I'm Caitlin Becker, and this is the New York Postcast. After shepherding the freshly inked peace deal in the Middle East, President Trump is turning his attention back to the war between Russia and Ukraine. The first step, inviting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky back to Washington for a chat this Friday. Trump had back-to-back calls with Zelensky this weekend before inviting him for a face-to-face. The Ukrainian president offered a readout of those calls on social media. In them, the pair covered the defense of the Ukrainian way of life during the Russian onslaught, as well as bolstering air defense and long-range capabilities like the U.S. Tomahawk missiles. Those could hit military targets deep in Russia. Here's what President Trump said about it while talking to reporters on Air Force One Monday.
I might have to speak to Russia, to be honest with you, about Tomahawks. Do they want to have Tomahawks going in their direction? I don't think so. I think I might speak to Russia about that, in all fairness.
Bill and Hillary Clinton have pushed back their Jeffrey Epstein deposition dates. The House Oversight Committee had subpoenaed the pair to talk about their relationship with the convicted and now deceased pedophile. Now, Hillary was slated to testify before the panel last week, but she didn't appear, and the former president was scheduled for his grilling today. But a committee spokesperson told the Post that it's not happening, and they added that they are, quote, having conversations with the Clintons' attorney to accommodate their schedules. When the couple was deposed back in August, Oversight Chair James Comer said, quote, everybody in America wants to know what went on in Epstein Island, and we've all heard reports that Bill Clinton was a frequent visitor there, so he's a prime suspect to be deposed. If you were a part of the I Want My MTV generation, well, that might not be an option much longer. And honestly, who are we kidding here? The network is a shell of its former glory. The once cultural behemoth is shuttering 5 of its stations in the UK, and fans are starting to wonder if the US channels may be on the chopping block too. Now, there are a bunch of different MTV channels. MTV proper, of course, then MTV 80s, MTV 90s, MTV Music, which seems redundant, but I digress. Like its stateside sister, the main MTV channel in the UK, it doesn't really play music videos anymore. It focuses mainly on reality shows. Fans tend to head to YouTube or other digital platforms for music videos, and MTV's sparkly new parent company, Skydance Media, is looking to cut $500 million from its global portfolio. 5 UK channels with music videos that people can find online elsewhere doesn't really seem all that necessary. And December 31st is the day the music dies in the UK. Now, MTV didn't respond to the Post's questions about other channels that could face closure, but here in the United States, the OG MTV also doesn't really play any music whatsoever. It's heavy on reality shows. MTV2 seems to show a whole lot of syndicated reruns of sitcoms, some reality shows, even some movies. Only MTV Classic shows music videos. The world was watching the long-awaited release of the 20 remaining living Israeli hostages from Hamas custody, and today I have got some of the amazing reunion stories. There is Aviatan Or, who was reunited with his girlfriend Noah Aramani. She was also taken hostage by Hamas on October 7th, 2023. Noah was rescued by Israeli forces last year. Then there was Yosef Hayim, who was reunited with his family after more than 2 years in captivity. And then Eviatar David, the 24-year-old who the whole world saw in Hamas propaganda videos from earlier this year digging his own grave. I shared that horrific story with you here on the podcast. When he emerged from the door of the black van that he rode to freedom in Israel, throngs of supporters cheered his return, surrounded by his family. As the world was cheering, President Trump addressed Israel's parliament, the Knesset. He told the lawmakers that his life is full of making deals, but, quote, maybe this is going to be the greatest deal of them all. The president then jetted off to Egypt to sign the historic peace agreement. But while there's a certain feeling of accomplishment across the Middle East, there's not a feeling of finality. There's still a lot of work left to be done. And for more on that, I'm joined by the Post Washington reporter, Caitlin Dornbos. Caitlin, first and foremost, getting these hostages home is incredible. I know the cynical side of both of us was we went into this really tentatively, but for so long, you and I have talked about the horrors that these people have lived through. And now, I mean, look at this.
I think our earlier, I don't want to call it pessimism, but just cautious optimism maybe that we had was really a reflection on what a big deal it is today that we actually have these hostages back. I mean, that was not out of some doubt that President Trump could get this done. It was really just out of the totality of the circumstances and showing how impossible really the world was feeling that this could be. 2 years, these people have been in horrible, horrible conditions, facing death. I'm sure that they were going to lose their lives, and now they're home in the arms of their families. And I think Special Envoy Witkoff, Jared Kushner, certainly, all of them really came together to help make this peace plan possible.
Now, just to almost sort of bring us back to that cautious optimism that we were discussing last week, it's kind of back in some ways, because you and I did talk about figuring out who rules Gaza and rebuilding it. Because just because these hostages are home, which is the first major step, and obviously it's an incredible feat, that doesn't mean that this is over. And you wrote a story this week about a kind of civil war that's brewing between Hamas and Palestinians. So what is going on there?
Yeah, now the real work starts as far as what happens in Gaza on this day 2. We're now facing phase 2, which is supposed to, according to the Trump plan, see the disarmament of Hamas and also see a new leadership voting structure be carried out to make sure that there's a next ruling force in Gaza that maybe isn't terrorists, but it doesn't look like Hamas is going to be willing to go out peacefully, go out quietly. They just called up another 7,000 of their security forces to go and deploy into Gaza to really suck up that territory that the IDF has now left as part of the peace plan. So now there's a power vacuum in Gaza, and it's not just Hamas that is left to govern. There are also other factions that want to take a piece of power in Gaza. You've got one in particular that has links to al-Qaeda. There's also a lot of Palestinians as well that were fighting Hamas on Israel's side, that actually wanted to get rid of Hamas because it was such a brutal dictatorship. So yeah, it's going to be, thank God the hostages are home, but now securing that lasting peace in Gaza. I mean, there could be a civil war. We just don't know at this time, but hopefully, the greater forces will prevail.
So finally, Caitlin, before I let you go, during his speech at the Knesset, President Trump suggested to Israel's president that he pardon Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So for those who haven't followed that side of things, what does Netanyahu need to be pardoned for? And what does that say about the sometimes hot and cold, tenuous relationship between Trump and Bibi?
Yeah, certainly. So Bibi Netanyahu has been facing charges related to corruption, allegations that he had taken some money in his position. Those have been ongoing for about 4 years. The litigation process has been kind of drug on and on and on. And certainly, I'm sure President Trump, sees Bibi for who he was and being able to get the ceasefire taken care of. But also, I'm sure he relates in some regard to being accused of crimes. Now, whether or not Bibi is actually guilty of these crimes, the courts haven't been able to, figure this out. But I do think that it does show a warming of relations between Bibi and Trump, which are probably certainly due, because I think Bibi listened to President Trump when he made this decision. The fact that he didn't go in and bulldoze Gaza was largely to do with President Trump's leadership. So I think we can see a warming of tensions there. Whether or not Bibi will get, a pardon from his own government, I don't know if that's even likely, because even though he was able to see the return of the hostages, his popularity in Israel has just been really struggling throughout this war. So, but it is interesting to see that warming of relations between he and Trump.
I'm so glad that we finally were able to sit down and talk about some really positive and heartwarming news after just 2 years of just terror out there. So I really hope that phase 2, I hope our cautious optimism is more optimistic than cautious as this unfolds. So Caitlin, thank you so much.
Certainly. Thank you.
An Arkansas man accused of killing his 14-year-old daughter's rapist is now running to be the sheriff of Lonoke County. Aaron Spencer claims the legal system failed him by charging him with the murder of 67-year-old Michael Fossler. Fossler was facing a slew of charges for grooming and abusing the young girl. Now, he'd been released after his arrest on a $50,000 bond. And then one day last October, Spencer's daughter was suddenly missing. The panicked father drove around looking for her, and, well, he found her in Michael Fossler's car. When Spencer caught up with them, he ran his daughter's attacker off the road and gunned him down.
Through my own fight for justice, I have seen firsthand the failures in law enforcement and in our circuit court. And I refuse to stand by while others face these same failures. That's why I'm announcing my candidacy to run for Lonoke County Sheriff.
Spencer's murder trial is scheduled to begin in January, and Election Day is in March. And finally today from our friends at Page Six. Forget Taylor and Travis or Timothy and Kylie. Hollywood's new it couple is not one you'd expect. Katy Perry and former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau? Yeah, they're a thing. For real, eh? Over the summer, this odd couple were spotted enjoying what appeared to be just a friendly meal in Montreal. But now they've been caught canoodling a big time on a yacht together, and a source confirms these two have been dating for about 4 months now. An insider told The Sun that the politician is, quote, a bit of a geek and can't believe someone as famous and glamorous as Katy is interested in him. I mean, same. Meanwhile, Katy is flattered that a respected former world leader wants to date her. Trudeau split from his wife Sophie in 2023, and Perry parted ways with actor Orlando Bloom after 10 years together earlier this year. Do I love this? Do I hate this? I don't know. I suppose you could say I'm hot and I'm cold, I'm yes and I'm no, I'm in then I'm out. Okay, I'll stop. Let's instead take a minute to preemptively mourn the death of MTV. Have I turned it on in the last decade? No, absolutely not. Does it still make me sad? Yes. Thankfully, podcasts are not going anywhere. So before you head out, make sure you like and follow the New York Postcast wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And I'll see you tomorrow, friends.